teasing, handball into danger. This would finish it off. He has. He's kicked the beauty.
How good's that?
Real stinger. That hurts. The two Chats with their three Brownlows between them, eh? So 11 wins in their first 12. That suggests they might be on their way to the big dance in September. The hierarchy there, eh? Coach, captain, champion.
Yes, welcome back to Talking Footy. The superstar from the Geelong Football Club, Patrick Dangerfield, joins us. And I think Bruce McAvaney summed it up pretty well, as he always does, Danger. 11-1, you go into a bye, you've got a healthy team. This is a fantastic start to the year for you.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly something that we knew we had to get right at the start of the year, given just how tough the start of the season was for us. And we're really pleased with how we've performed, and our guys have really earned the break.
You're right. You're like 11-1. You've got the start that you had. Those first 6 games, you would have been happy to be 3-3 after the first 6. That was a tough first 6 weeks.
Yeah, I sort of looked at the first 6 to 9 weeks and you go, geez, if we can be sort of 5-4 and playing some good footy and be competitive, then we're in a really good position. But it just shows you can never forecast the competition, and you know, it's so cliche, but we really have just taken it slowly. Taken the preparation week by week and sort of blocked it into month by month, and then from there the competition started and we really got rolling.
Paddy, you were well beaten in that elimination final last year. I remember the next day Brian Cook, your CEO, went on radio and questioned the game plan. I know Chris Scott wasn't that happy about it, but how much did you all go away and say what we're doing isn't working and revamp your game style and the way you were doing things?
I think the challenge is all game styles will work if you can execute it. We were clearly not executing it for long enough. And part of that, I think, has just been our ability to retain the ball inside our forward 50, which we weren't able to do last season. And we've had some personnel changes this season that has really enabled us to lock the ball in our forward half. And then what that's been able to do for us is our whole formation then pushes further up the ground. So we're able to play it in our forward half, which we weren't able to do last year.
Has Chris Scott changed at all? Did he change over the summer months in any way in terms of his relationship with the players and the way that he was coaching, his style of coaching at all?
He's certainly more open, I suppose. There hasn't been a real great change, to be honest, from any of our coaches. It's always better when things are going well and you're winning, but he's a really positive coach. I think that's one of the things that is why he's so good. And he didn't go away from that last year, but I suppose there's more positive to reinforce this year. And it's funny listening to some commentary from Friday night around, the Cats must have got a real rev up at quarter time to respond like that. But it wasn't at all. It was really pragmatic around what we need to do and how we need to function and what we need to execute. And from then on, it'll work for us. So let's just stick to the plan. And footy's a pretty simple game sometimes.
Has anyone surprised you? You obviously have some debutants that have come in, held their spot, playing really consistent footy. Stanley's having career best form. Has any of those guys surprised you?
Yeah, I didn't think Brian Myers could be the player that he's become so quickly. Phenomenal work rate. But for him to have the influence that he's had on our team as a second-year player has been quite extraordinary. Gary Rowan, our reviews, basically we just showed clips of Gary Rowan because what he does on a football field, it's like watching Cyril. You know, you watch Cyril and you go, that's the best 8-touch game I've ever seen because of the influence and the impact he has. And Gary's different because it's just this incredible off-camera running that we see when we go through vision, and it's just extraordinary.
What did he teach? I know Tom Hawkins said that he taught him a few things about the way that players are forward. Can you sort of give us some idea what those things are that he's been able to bring to the club?
I suppose he's played a bit of a defensive role at times and worked really hard to try and free up Buddy at different stages at Sydney. And then for us, we've basically had a rule that, you know, if it had been wet, we're like, let's just try and make sure our troops are on the ground. Except for Gary, you can do whatever you like. You can jump at the ball and just go for it. Trust your natural instincts. And his goal kicking, he just doesn't miss. Like, it's interesting listening to the vision before about Goody, and it's so true. If you don't have the confidence, and Duck spoke about it, to nail the kick or to nail the goals, it it becomes just one of those things that builds up within a team and just puts so much pressure on you. At the moment, our forwards are just nailing goals early, so the anxiety levels just drop out.
Are you training that differently? Under fatigue at training or...?
Not really. It's such a hard thing to train. Like, how do you train the pressure of an AFL game? You just can't. You've just got to make sure that we're upskilling our players as best we can and making it okay to fail or to miss during a game, so to try and lower that anxiety. But at the moment, our guys are just nailing goals.
Confident. It's above the shoulders, isn't it? It's
really
not all about, on the training, it's all above the shoulders.
Now, Paddy, if there's any sort of feud, it's going to come up on Talking Footy. So you've got to cut to your mate Kane Corns, who's obsessed with the fact that he thinks you may be overplay, some injuries, danger. I thought your response was hilarious the year before he came out with the bandages and the crutches and... I think
no one laughed at that.
That was tough.
No.
You didn't get a laugh out of the press.
You didn't get the reaction you thought you were going to get. I thought it was funny, by the way. I just wasn't there.
Is there any theatre around you, Danger? Because I think you're brilliant. You give more than anyone we've seen in recent years. How do you respond to that?
Well, there wasn't any theatre in that. When the medicos tell you need to ice up and take weight off your foot, well, you do what you're told. Yeah. So then when you're told, when someone accuses you of playing it up, it's like, well, hang on, who am I going to listen to, the medicos or a past player? I think I'll listen to the doctors.
There was an incident in Friday night's game. Jack Higgins. Jack Higgins kicked a goal or a point, whatever it was. There was a mess up in the goal review. Where were you on the ground, and are you frustrated as players at what's going on here?
I was next to an umpire and I asked him straight away, having had seen the vision, I thought, looks like a goal. And then I asked the umpire and he said straight away, no, we think it's touched. So obviously whoever was, the officiating umpire up close must have been really quite sure. It is a difficult one. I mean, we'd much rather have the technology than not, so we can make sure that we nail the howlers. I mean, there's been a few lately that, it'd be far better to get right, but we'd rather have it than not have it.
Now, Mark Robinson had a big front-page story on Saturday, which you took umbrage at. It was from a gambling counsellor called Jan Beams, who revealed, without naming names, that there were 2 players in the AFL system who'd lost over $1 million gambling, and up to 120 players and coaches who were gambling addicts. What was your concern with that? The AFLPA put out a strong statement in the morning condemning the article, and then you had some things to say about it in the afternoon. Yeah,
I was really disappointed by it, and we spoke on radio later that afternoon around it. The fact that we as a PA were not even consulted or spoken to in regards to the article, so we can't put forward the different measures that we have to help support players, because I think fundamentally it comes back to mental health, and whether it's drug use, whether it's alcoholism or gambling, mental health and ill mental health plays a huge role within this. So the fact that we weren't even spoken to by Mark with that article really frustrated me. And the article itself, I don't see how this is actually helping players. I've heard some really good things about what she does with players and players that she's helped, but I don't see any solutions to it. And why I took umbrage was, where does this benefit the players? The next player that we see in a pub, he's definitely got a gambling addict. Yep, he's on the punt. He's definitely one that's lost $1 million. It paints the entire playing group. So we were really annoyed as a Players Association. But
is enough being done? When we hear that blokes are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars, is there a problem with the current system to look after these guys?
Look at the Victorian government. I mean, they're putting a huge amount of work and have started conducting a royal commission into mental health. So it stems from that, I believe. Our players have told us this is the biggest issue within the game, mental health and ill mental health. So from there, we look at the triggers. So gambling, what we've been led to believe is it comes back to mental health in that space. The same with alcoholism and different drug use. Are we doing everything we can? We can certainly improve, and we're always constantly looking to improve. But this is a society issue that no one's nailed. There is no one expert that has an answer to absolutely everything when it comes to gambling or alcoholism or drug use, because everyone is different and everyone responds differently to different things that happen.
Hey, Danger, is that something I often hear current players talk, and you hear about the epidemic of mental health in the game and the challenges that... I look at you and think footy's fun. Footy's a great game to play, but concern now for younger people coming through and the effects of social media. Is it more challenging now than you think it's ever been because of some of the things players face?
It is challenging. I think you're so accessible as a player, which can be really difficult. And social media has played a part in that. And social media can be wonderful. It's the gateway to interact with your fans that you may never be able to talk to or see because they're from Western Australia and they're Cat supporters. But you can do that via social media. But the hate comes with it as well. The pressure in the game, I think, is as strong as it's ever been simply because wages are going up and we're critical with player performances, and that's okay. That's part of the game. You know, you look at what happens in the States, and you know that's critical. You know, there's journos there really nailing players, whether it be the best in the competition or players that are on the outskirts. But I suppose because it's almost more community based as a sport in Australia, that the big stories aren't everywhere. And there's not that many stories every week. So when they do happen and there is a player that's put in the spotlight, everyone knows about it. It's not just, well, the next day there's another story or Kevin Durant's hurt his calf or whatever it might be. So it's a really tough space. We need to continue to learn as a Players Association. The AFL, I know, are investing in this space as well as clubs because it's tough. It's a tough game at times.
A lot of talk in and around the booing at the moment. Gary Ablett in great form, but being booed. People forget, and you brought up American sport. Tom Brady, best NFL player probably of all time, gets booed every week that he's not playing, you know, in his home stadium. So is this overplayed? What do you think about that situation?
Oh, it was comical out there, to be honest, because we just know how good Gary is. Like, it was super loud. By the end of it, he's had 24, kicked 2, dominated the game, and I think they'd had enough of him by the end. I think the Adam Good situation is far different to what Gary has sort of been through the last couple of weeks against a couple of different various teams. I think we as a competition, as an industry, really failed at him. But it's different in the Ablett scenario, and there's different times during a game. If someone gets clipped head high and the crowd's into it, I think that's part and part of the game. But there are different.
Did you think at the time you were failing Adam Goods, or is it on reflection you now think that we all failed him so badly and deeply?
Probably at the time I was just naive to it, and I think as a lot of us were. You certainly look back and reflect and go, how did none of us stand up and really put this on the agenda and say...
Because your own Players Association didn't really do that either, did they?
Well, I don't think anyone really did it as hard as what we should have. Really stand up. We condemned it at the time as a PA, but if we had our time again, would have we gone 10 times harder? Absolutely we would have. But I think the whole industry would have. I think we would have pulled each other up and said, This is not on.
So who drove the campaign that we saw over the Sir Doug Nicholls round, the 2 rounds? Who drove that campaign, the locking of the arms post? Was that you specifically as the president of the AFLPA?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah. No.
Okay.
It was
great. It was powerful.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was really powerful.
Great image. Yeah.
I still remember when Phil Walsh passed away and the clubs coming together and how much that meant to us as an organisation at the time. And then for it to happen again, albeit a different circumstance, I thought was really special.
Always great to have Danger with us on Talking Footy, Jack. I know that lots of the Talking Footy family want to get involved as well. What have you got?
Yeah, so one of the great things on social media is our viewers getting to ask you some questions. And Michael on Facebook wants to ask you, who of the new recruits have you taken under your wing?
I'm not sure about taking under my wing. Jordan Clark has been a really impressive player for us, Jack. Cricketer background, so he's a bit more relaxed, and as most cricketers are, he's needed to fix up his diet a bit, but slowly working away with that with Jordan, and he's a lot of fun, which is important, I think, for a young player.
And Nathan's asked us, do you have any desire to go into coaching? What a great question.
Not at all, no. I see the work that, and you would have seen this, known this, Tim, but the work that coaches do, mind-blowing, it's so consuming. it's a lot more fun to, I think, critique the game rather than be involved in a coaching capacity.
You've had both experiences. What would you recommend to...
just about nailed
I think you got it right. Danger, we really appreciate your time. Keep doing what you're doing because you make the game a better spectacle on every level. Thanks for joining us again tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys.
The great Paddy Dangerfield.